Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is part one of a two-part list, a compare and contrast kind of list, as it were. This particular video is going to be the top 10 games that I have no regrets about going all in on. That's the list. Once again, the top 10 games that I have no regrets about going all in on. I actually even defined it as, like, degrees of no regrets, because this is actually an ordered list from the less sure to the all the way certain. I'm gonna have 10 giant box campaign game situations, not all campaign games, different types of things that I went ahead on the crowdfunding campaign. I went all in, and I am totally confident, or mostly confident, in my decision. That's this video. The next video, don't know exactly when it'll go up, but the next video is going to be at least 10. The next video might be a bit more than 10. I think I have around 12 to 13, we'll see. But the next video is going to be a list of the 12 to 13 or however many campaign games, however many crowdfunding games that I probably should not have gone all in on. So we have a bit of a, what type of games did or didn't work for me? Which ones did you hit that, all in and it worked out for whatever reason it worked out? And which ones should you possibly have been a bit more restrictive around what you did or didn't back? Now, a few caveats before we go into this list. The first is that for all-in over here, when I talk about all-ins, I am talking about something that had a bunch of ways to go ahead and buy things. I'm not talking about a game that had, a $150 game and a $20 expansion. That would be enough content for me to realistically say it's not like an all-in, a base game and an expansion, but realistically there was a bunch of content to go ahead and buy that you could have spent a decent amount more than the minimum pledge to get all of this. I'll also say that we're not talking about things that I haven't yet had the opportunity to see whether they will or won't last. So for example, The Witcher or the Old World is one that will not be on either of these lists because I believe that I am totally confident in having gone all in on that, but ultimately I need to play the expansions and see how quickly those get incorporated into my gameplays and how much I actually play them in order to dive into them. This list is also not about whether I regret it or not. There are a bunch of games that will be in the other video that I don't regret going all in on, but arguably based on what I am and am not playing, I should not have done so. But with some of those disclaimers out of the way, and if you see anything that's missing, if you're like, what about this game, what about that game? Well, first of all, wait for the next video. But after that video, if you're like, what about this game that I know you talk about, or this or that, what are your thoughts on that? Either there's a reason it wasn't on the list, in which case I'll answer you, or I forgot about it, in which case I'll answer you. But with that, let's go ahead and start this off. This is going to be ranked from 10 down the way down to 1. 1 being the one that I am the most certain that it was totally the right judgment call, and 10 being where I'm a little bit uncertain. And number 10 is going to be Oathsworn Into the Deepwood. Now, the uncertainty around Oathsworn is an interesting one because this is a bit of a unique case compared to everything else on the table, for better or for worse. Arguably, the Castle of Burgundy should be in a similar situation. Honestly, the Castle of Burgundy, I didn't actually grab it, but the Castle of Burgundy we're going to put right next to it on this table over here because those two games fall into the same category. They're not about the extra content you're getting, rather it's about the extra deluxification you're getting. Meaning it's not there's a decision of, did you play those extra characters? Did you incorporate that expansion? Have you gotten more gameplay out of it? It's a question of, hey, by spending X amount more, did you enhance the physical table presence of the game? And to that end, with the Oathsworn, with Castle of Burgundy would actually be on this list. It was not on this list, I apologize. Castle of Burgundy would be, I'm going to put Castle of Burgundy number 1 on this list because I love Castle of Burgundy. I play that game so much, and I'm totally confident and happy with all the decision I spent, with all the money spent on that. We'll talk about that one after. We'll get to it later in this video. I totally forgot about it. But with Oathsworn Into the Deepwood, I'm a little uncertain. I'm pretty certain, or it wouldn't be on this list, because it has enhanced my gameplays. Having giant miniatures as opposed to standees have enhanced the gameplay. The ability to put giant trees and huts onto your board instead of having cardboard flat terrain pieces has enhanced the gameplay. The only reason this is a small degree of pause and why it's the number 10 on the list is because it does take up 4 giant boxes when otherwise it could be 1 box, and unlike most other games where I usually condense things viciously, this is not a game system that lets you condense it easily unless you're willing to compromise heavily on how efficiently everything is currently stored. So it's a bit of a mess as far as the amount of shelf space it takes up in order to be able to have it all. That's the biggest small hesitancy, the ability to table this. If you want to table Oathsworn, you kind of have to walk 3 boxes over to your friend's house if you're not tabling it at your house, which does make it a bit of a problem. That said, the reason it's on this list is because all the stuff that makes this game base pledge to where it's at is present from day one. All those things are stuff you're incorporating right away. Those extra miniatures, those extra scenery, the expandable armory, those are things that are being incorporated into your gameplay very quickly. This is not a game that you have to have on your shelf for the next 3.5 years to even debate whether you dove into the expansion content or not. It's just improving the quality of the table presence, and to that end, Oathsworn is still on this list, just granted at number 10 because of the sheer amount of shelf space this goes. And again, the point of this list is, which things do I think I am mostly or totally justified in having gotten all of it, as opposed to probably shouldn't have. Number 9 is going to be, where's my number 9? Number 9 is in the wrong place. Why is number 9 over there? Number 9 is over here. Number 9 is The World of Smog, The Rise of Moloch. Okay, this is over here. And this is one that I love this game. I don't know if I'll ever play it again, which is a different conversation. It's also why it's a bit number 9 over here. But the reason I don't play this game is, the reason I don't know if I'll ever play this game is because I think for the most part it's been replaced by Master of the Universe from the same publisher with a lot of the same architecture of the game in place and with differences at the same time. But Rise of Moloch over here, I have all of it. And all of it represents a few different things, some of which I do regret a little bit, why it's low on the list, and some of which I don't regret at all. The first thing I don't regret at all is plug-and-play content. A big common trend on this list compared to other games that I'll be talking about is the nature of plug-and-play content and to what extent I've taken advantage of that plug-and-play content. In other words, the more Rise of Moloch content you have, whether it's stretch goals, whether it's expansions, whatever it is, the more heroes and villains and monsters you're able to sit there and just insert into your game engine. You can proxy out certain villains. You can proxy in certain heroes. You have a vast smorgasbord of additional content that's just being mixed into your game system just by the nature of having it. The part I'm a little bit less certain of is the way they added additional campaigns to the game, additional missions, is very often by plugging it into the middle of a 6-mission arc and turning your campaign into a 9-mission arc, which just makes it harder to table. So that stuff I haven't been able to benefit from nearly as much. But the additional content, the plug-and-play content, that stuff I've been able to benefit from a lot in The World of Smog, Rise of Moloch. This is a game that I played a lot once upon a time. Less so nowadays, again, because Master of the Universe kind of replaced it for me. But not, I mean, I love the game enough, it's not going anywhere at all. But this is one that I've definitely been able to enjoy and appreciate because of the nature of the plug-and-play content. I just play it less, and I haven't gone through as much of the plug-and-play content, which is why it's my number 9. And again, that plug-and-play content is going to be a very common trend in this list entirely, compared to the alternate lists where games didn't necessarily get tabled as much. My number 8 is going to be Master of the Universe. And the only reason this one's number 8 as opposed to higher up is because I haven't played it enough yet. That's the biggest issue. So it has the plug-and-play content, which means I know I'm going to benefit from having all the content. And it falls into the mold of these similar games that will be on the table as you go through it, but just the sheer amount of content, the ratio of the amount of content I have to what I've actually been able to experience yet so far is lower, which is why it's a little higher on this list. Whereas the reason it's here and The Witcher's not is The Witcher is expansion content, and that is something that sometimes that's something that can take years for me to actually get through all the expansions, versus this over here, it won't take long before I feel I've benefited from having that selection of content available to you. And again, there's going to be more missions, more content, more other things. All these new things are added as well, but the biggest appeal of the additional stuff you got, scenery as well, is going to be plug-and-play content. And I've condensed it down into like 2 boxes at this point, or, well, 2 larger boxes and a few smaller boxes. I've condensed it decently, not as much as I actually thought I did. But this over here, Master of the Universe, the nature of being able to pick any hero and being able to proxy it in, the nature of being able to have more equipment, more items, more cards of all different kinds, and to be able to integrate that into your system cleanly. That's a big thing over here. The ability and the speed of which you're able to integrate it all, and the quality of the game behind it. Over here, Master of the Universe is going to be our number 8. Our number 7 is going to be Monumental, and this I'm also kind of mentally counting African Empires, even though it has not yet arrived. But Monumental is from Funforge Games, and this is one that is a great gaming system, one that I do not table as much as I'd like to, but one that I have tabled a lot, and one that I've very much enjoyed these systems behind it. In the game, you're basically building out a civilization while also dealing with a degree of deck building with a interesting 3x3 card tableau where you activate a row and a column and then replace those cards. Very interesting puzzle, big on table space, but a fascinating game system that I really enjoy. I actually really enjoy the 2-player, probably the most from the game, but it's a really, really solid system that I'm a big fan of Monumental. And the thing I like about the expansion, and again, this is falling a bit into that edge case because it has only one expansion. I think the Lost Empires, maybe it was, I don't remember what it's called. But then you have African Empires on top of it. I feel like I'm getting some of the names wrong. Was it Lost something? I don't remember. There's 2 different expansions for this game, but both these expansions are basically adding more easily plug-and-playable content. You have the additional factions you can play as, so in this game it's not a campaign game. You're not signing up for a character for a 20-mission arc, or if not more. Rather, you're picking a faction to play as and call it a day. That's your faction. Dive into the game. But then you also have the plug-and-play content, the various heroes you're facing off as, all the cards you're going to be adding to the game. All of that is easy to incorporate content, which means the more you have of this game, the more you are able to immediately see that stuff, and you're not being introduced to a ton of new rules or facets or expansions that make it harder to actually break through and get to that content. Again, this is going to be a consistent trend throughout this entire video, but Monumental is a fascinating game, phenomenally well done, and the ability to enjoy all the extra content has been, well, nearly immediate. My number 6, are we up to number 6? Well, I feel like I'm missing a title here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm missing a box here. pause while I awkwardly look at my list over here and see what I'm missing. We're missing something. Got that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I found the one I'm missing. Give me a second here. Apologies for that. Number 6 over here, I know this is not the one I forgot. Number 5 is the one I forgot, but we'll get to that soon enough. I left it on the table behind me. But number 6 over here is the Great Wall. The Great Wall over here, and the only reason this is number 6 is because I don't love how the expansions are not all properly cross-compatible. In the Great Wall, this is a game where it's not plug and play in the typical sense. There is a degree of plug and play. You'll definitely have some degree of content that you can mix in no matter what. You don't have to worry about this, that, or the other. But ultimately, in the game, meaning that some of it you'll have some additional general, some additional content for the game that are thrown in that you could plug and play into the system. But a lot of it is going to be modular, not modular, it's going to be expansion content for the game with new rules added. The one thing I don't like is that not all of it is cross-compatible, so you can't utilize all of it at once, which means I haven't used all of it once, but I have benefited from a lot of it. I just haven't benefited from all of it quite as much. So it does receive a small asterisk in that sense. The flip side is I think the Black Powder expansion is not essential to the game, but elevates the game immensely, and between that and the additional content you have from going all in, even though I don't get to play with all of it all the time in every way and shape that I want to, it still does make this list as a game that I'm very happy to have gone all in on, because without it, I'd be playing an inferior game with less content for plug and play as well. Both of those facets would take away from the Great Wall and why I enjoy it. Number 5, which shouldn't be forgotten, this game, if anything, I've played so much, there's a reason, the reason why this number 5 is a little more complicated, but that's going to be Blood Rage. Blood Rage from Command Games, a phenomenal game, arguably one of the most played games on this list because, I mean, I've had this for a long time. This box is worn with how bad it is. This is... I don't actually know which one I've played the most in this, but this is definitely up there as far as one of the games that I've played a ton of, and I've played a ton of the content from the, I had the original base game in retail, and then I went all in on the Blood Rage digital expansion with all the extra content it had. The only reason this is number 5 and not further up this list, not higher, is because of the technicality where I already knew that I liked Blood Rage before I went all in on this extra content expansion. So it was a little trickier. These other games, all the other games you see on the table, are games that I went all in on before knowing how much I liked them. I guess with the arguable caveat on Monumental, where one of the expansions I got later as well. But so Blood Rage gets a little bit of a pointing just from that. But as far as a game that I've benefited from all the content, I used both expansions that were out. They were available in retail as well, but I used both those expansions. I use all the content from from Blood Rage Digital to be able to mix and match into the game system. You grab your various monsters, throw them into the system, and you have more experiences on the table, more ways to try to leverage the various systems in this game. So I have 100% benefited from having all of Blood Rage. It is fully condensed into this box with some inserts and things. It's mostly condensed, fully condensed. No, the boards, some of the boards are outside the box. Just the amount of things you can get in here is, there's a limit to what you can accomplish over here with no matter what time and space you're working with. That's going to be Blood Rage, my number 5. My number 4 is a game that, again, small pointings as far as where it is compared to 3-2-1-1. 3-2-1-1 are nearly equal, by the way. But my number 4 over here is going to be Unsettled from Orange Nebula. This is a game where I've already gone into, I want to say I've done 5 of the 6 planets that the game has. The base game comes with 2 planets, and you could buy 4 more planets. I don't think I've played one of them yet, because the way the planets operate is they all give you multiple missions to dive into. So you could go through an entire planet on its own. You could say, I'm going to play all the missions in that planet until I'm done, and then I'll do all missions in the next planet. That would be a reasonable thing to do. But I want to explore the new rules and infrastructures and systems that the game brings you, and so I've played as most of the fat planets. Again, I think there's one planet I have not played as yet, but for the other ones, I've already gone into them. Again, that goes into that plug and play aspect. You have a core system, but then all the expansions can be integrated within that core system. You can simply grab any one planet, plug it in you want, and then engage with multiple missions on that planet. It's not a campaign. This is just a scenario-driven game, but it's a scenario-driven game with a lot of content, and content that I went all in on and have benefited from immensely, and I'm more than excited for the new content, for the Wave 2 content that will be coming at some point, whenever it is. I'm excited for that as well, because that's going to be just more planets, more infrastructures, more plug-and-play content, which is almost always the time, almost always, there are some caveats we'll get into the next video, but almost always the times where I benefit from the additional content the most is when I don't have to go through it procedurally, but rather I can just throw it in whenever I want, however I want, and be able to play it. Which also means that the top 3 on this video, the top 3 on this list, let's move this off to the side a little bit without having things fall off the table if possible. The top 3 on this list are games that arguably you should be able to figure out from games I've talked about in the past and from the nature of the types of content I'm talking about. I'll give you a second to pause and think, especially knowing my interests, my tastes, what games are the top 3 that make the cut, not cult. although with crowdfunding, it's not that dissimilar. My number 3 over here is going to be Marvel United. Marvel United is going to be number 3, and this is a game that I have played so much and enjoyed so much content. And not only have I done the plug and play, because the plug and play is easy. Every single expansion gives you more heroes and villains to swap in. That's easy. That's no problem. But I've played as nearly all, if not all of the expansions. I may have played all. I don't know for sure. I have to double check. But I've played with nearly all, if not all of the expansions, because even the expansion content is often gated behind a single sheet of paper that you have to read the rules for. Sometimes, in the worst cases, there's 2 sheets of paper. You have to open it up and actually look through it. And so that much, the ability to enjoy and integrate more Marvel United content. I mean, you can check. There's like 10 playthroughs on the channel for Marvel United content because it's that easy to play. I've enjoyed going through this. I've enjoyed playing as the expansions. The Sentinels expansion, the Days of Future Past, still one of my favorite expansions to date. Some of the expansions have been a miss. The Blue vs. Gold expansion, I don't like that head-to-head version at all. It's basically semi-cooperative, and if you watch the gameplay we have, you can literally see the moment where I have the opportunity, because I'm not winning, I have the opportunity to tank the game and make sure Devin loses too, which strategically speaking is the way to go. But no, I have to be a good player, so let's go ahead and break the rules of the system and just let Devin win when I don't have to do so. That's semi-co-op. It's the problem with semi-co-op. There's a reason it exists. I still had fun playing. But past that, I'm not saying I love all the expansions, but I've played through all the expansions, almost all or all of the expansions, and the plug-and-play content that this game has from both Season 1 and Season 2, and I have both. I obviously don't have the multiverse yet because it's not out yet. I'm sure they'll have more content as well, and I'll still get it despite myself because of the fact that at least I know that I'm enjoying it. At least I know that I'm benefiting from it. At least I know that when I have more Marvel United content, I can go through that system. I can benefit from it. I can play it and see all the things the game system has to offer, and that's going to be Marvel United, an easy pick for number 3. And again, 3, 2, and 1 are basically equal in terms of the sheer amount of plays I've gotten from them and the ways I've been able to utilize and benefit from so much of the content to be able to say I'm completely, totally confident in my decision to have gone all in. Number 2 is going to be Cthulhu Death May Die. Cthulhu Death May Die, I have gone through so much of this game system. I have not played the final scenario that has you facing off against the giant Cthulhu. I don't have the giant Cthulhu, but I do have the final scenario, so, you know, midway on that one. But this is such a... It's so good. It's such a good game to begin with. That's the first thing. The second thing is the way the plug and play works in this system is you have these missions and scenarios. You're not actually plugging and playing monsters, which is interesting. This one over here, and number 1, you can plug and play with more freedom. In the Cthulhu Death May Die, you're matching up a scenario and an Elder God against each other, but that does mean for every Elder God you have, you can be playing with that immediately. You can be diving into the game immediately with that Elder God. And every scenario will incorporate different monsters. So you can't pick and choose exactly what you want on the table, but you can pick and choose what to play at any given time. It's not a campaign in the typical sense. You can play through it procedurally. It's episodic. So you can pick through and say, I'm going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then dive into Season 2. So you could go through it, and then the lost episodes and all that. But I've gone through all, if not all, I think there's 1 or 2 episodes I have not done for this game system, but I've gone through so much of it that I've benefited so much from the Cthulhu Death May Die. This is one of those games that makes me, this game right here is one of the reasons why I continue to go all in. It's one of the reasons why I continue to look at certain games, and I've gotten better but not perfect at it, and being able to say to myself, will I actually utilize and benefit from all the things that you're trying to sell today? Because sometimes the answer is yes, in which case it's worth it. And other times the answer, well, worth is debatable. To me, it's worth it. And sometimes the answer is no, in which case you have a giant, expensive paperweight that was great for an unboxing video once upon a time, but that's about all it's good for. I mean, number 1 is less so a game and more an entire system, and that's going to be, I'm sure you predicted this, but Zombicide. Zombicide as a system is a game that I have gotten so much from, and this includes Zombicide Black Plague, it includes Zombicide Green Horde, a little less so on Green Horde. I have not gone through all of the Green Horde content, I've gone through, I think, all the Black Plague content. Undead or Alive, similarly, the game system that Zombicide enables, Marvel Zombies, which still hasn't shown up for me yet, but will be showing up soon. The nature of the Zombicide universe is like Marvel United before it, the expansions give you plug-and-play content, more heroes, more abominations, more superhero villains or superhero zombies, whatever it is. They give you all that content you'll have that you can plug into your system from day 1. And they also give you rules. They also give you matchup, more ways to engage with the system, and those are things that will be incorporated a bit more slowly. They're still fairly easy to read the new content for it. Unlike Marvel United, it's not as simple as that, but it still is simple to incorporate some of those expansions, some of the additional content, more of the scenarios and all of that stuff. But ultimately, the ability to plug and play more stuff into a game system that works for you means you benefit from it a lot more. I have a ton of content for Black Plague, and I've gone through all of it or nearly all of it. Even the scenarios, I've gone through most, if not all, of the scenarios for Black Plague that I have. And so I've gone through so much of that. The expansion content, the scenarios, the mechanical differences, the new zombie types, all of that. Black Plague to me still has the best variety in zombie types, which I mean, there's a reason I'll never get rid of this one, and never is a relative term, but as of right now, the reason I'll never get rid of Black Plague is because no other Zombicide system right now gives me the zombie variety, except for Invader, and Invader I have my own issues with because I thought it was way too easy. That's a different conversation, but in general, zombie variety is something that's slowly gotten worse and worse with progressive Zombicide systems. As much as I like Marvel Zombies, and I do, I think it's a great system, it doesn't have the Zombicide variety that Black Plague does. It has other things that Black Plague doesn't, which is why I have room for both of them in my collection. But ultimately, the ability to go through all of it is so impactful. The dragons I have not gone through. That's going to be a Green Horde edition, if I recall correctly. And the dragons are stuff I still have not played with the dragons. I've read the rules to them. I just happen to have never incorporated them into a game. And that's something I should do and want to do at some point. So not everything in the system have I benefited from, but I benefited from a lot of it. And with Marvel Zombie shows up, I assume I'll benefit from it as well in a similar sense. The plug and play immediately, the expansion content here and there as we go through it, but these systems have been games that I've been able to go through. And that's number one over here. That's the end of this video. A common trend on this video. Oh, I forgot Castle Burgundy. Castle Burgundy is going to be my other number one. I should have gotten Castle Burgundy while I got up for that cut. Should have done that. Castle Burgundy is going to be my other number one pick because, again, it's an easy addition. It's a deluxeification of a game that I play a ton of. It makes the game just easier on the table. Better table, not easy on the table, more work on the table. Better table presence on the table. And so Castle Burgundy is going to be another one that I have no regrets at all about going all in. A deluxeification to one of my favorite games of all time. A big part of this video is the ease of adopting the content you get. That's the common trend here. And you're going to see the differences when I go through that second video in a week, 2 weeks, whenever it happens. I'll link to it and all that stuff. But when I go through video 2, the games that I regret going all in on, the games that I have not been able to experience or enjoy the content from quite as much, a big difference is how accessible is that content. If you are playing the game several times, how quickly before you actually benefit from all that stuff you paid for? How much of it is a hypothetical situation that you might one day get to and it represents the potential future, but not actually one you're engaging with, versus how much are you actually able to enjoy the thing that you just paid money for? That's a big aspect of the games on this table. The plug and play content, the deluxeification content, and the ease of accessibility with expansion content are the three criteria that I would say that most define all-in pledges that are worth it. Everyone's going to have their own unique situation, and you don't need any of this. Keep in mind, just because of the fact that I've played through so much Marvel United content that I can say it's easily been worth it for me, doesn't mean you should go out and spend $700, $800, $900 on getting everything, because you can easily spend that much to get everything. So again, just because it's been worth it for me, doesn't mean it's worth it for you. To me, this video, I was going to say video series, but not really a series. To me, these two videos are less about what you should or shouldn't do, and more about trying to point out the ways in which you're likely to engage in that content, and whether that's and if that is a factor for you, then possibly having you reevaluate the type of all-in pledges you get and the type of all-in pledges you skip on. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video useful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.